So welcome everyone to my 10th session in the ICW this month and this week. So a lot of you become familiar faces. A lot of your names have become very familiar in terms of who you are, where you're joining from.
Tamara is asked.
Yeah, so if there's anything, please put it on the chat. If there's a question, please raise your hand and I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, please put your mic on mute. Yeah, so I was just sharing in terms of, like this is my 10th session for the ICW, and somewhere, I'd put a message on the group saying fatigue has actually come into place, saying it's been a long, long week. But I think this is a passionate subject for me in terms of the ICE, and somewhere also a subject of pride because I cracked the ICE twice in 5 months. So I did my ACC in May 2023. Yeah, I think exactly a year and 1 day before. So I was ACC on May 17th, and PCC on I think somewhere around October 28th or 29th. So you always remember your ACC and PCC dates because you have written your ICE and it's touted to be one of the toughest exams. I've had people from different coaching lenses tell me that for them it was the roughest exam.
Thank you,
They've
Commissioner.
Hi Vanya. So good welcome to the
Sorry, I muted
conversation.
myself immediately. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. So yeah, so people from all across the world, whenever I've told them about my experiences, my adventures with the ICE, they've said you must be some superhuman because you've cracked it twice. We were struggling to crack it once. I know of wonderful coaches who have not been able to crack it once, twice, and thrice. And people come to me and tell me saying, this particular person, she wrote it twice, he wrote it twice, still not able to make it. But I also would like to give examples of so many people who've written it once and cracked it. So it's about, keeping your thoughts about where, you're able to crack it. Crack it means I have passed both times. So my ACC, I finished in um, May. So I wrote ACC in May last year. My PCC ICE, which is very similar formatting with the new format. So I wrote it in October last year. And both times I was able to get more than 460. Yeah. So yeah, I had an accelerated jump from ACC to PCC. So ACC, I had finished my hours in 100 hours in even before I finished my coach training hours. So 60 hours even before 60 was done. My 100 hours of coach experience was already there. But when I applied for ACC, I was 170 hours in. And when I wrote the ICE, I was almost around 300 hours into into my hours. And then was getting trained. So trained for PCC. So essentially it became pretty much then a goal was set saying I need to finish my hours in a year. And yeah, hours were done, but credentialing and other things took a little bit of a time. So it took me around that timeline. And somewhere I jokingly tell people saying ICF said you don't have to write the IC again in 12 months because they saw me crack it twice. So it's just an internal and interior joke, nothing official from the ICF. So it is definitely not tough. I think answering what Geeta has asked, is it as tough as it is made out to be? I don't think it is tough. ICF, as far as I know, is not wanting to fail you. At the last part of the deal, in terms of like your credentialing, it definitely tests you, right? It is a definite test, but it is not designed in a way that it is a demon or a monster or whatever that you would like to associate it with. It's just another test. And I approached it with that space saying the ICE or whatever exam that I'm going to write is in no way an indication of my skill set as a coach or my worth as an individual. Even if I fail the ICE, I'm still going to be a good person. I'm still going to be a good coach. I'm still going to be in a way that I will still show up for my clients in the most authentic way possible. And this is another addition. It is a certification from the ICF, which follows a lot of these competencies and spaces. But and I've passed the recording, which means my skill set stuff is good. Even if I fail the ICE, it's not going to be any bad reflection of who I am as a coach, right? So that was the first strategy I had. And yeah, maybe I think just also on the chat, why did you have the second exam? So ACC, I wrote it in 2022 May, and then PCC I wrote it in October. So I had done it from two different institutes. And when I wrote it, the new rule that was in effect from 2024 beginning, that if you write ACC now, crack it today. And if you finish your PCC training and the hours within a year, you don't need to crack it. So that was new for me. That was a new rule that they brought in this year beginning. But then in last year where I wrote two exams. And, I had already paid for my ACC exam. And that's why I went ahead and wrote it for the first time anyways, right? So that was the space. And I think, yeah, so coach training, my ACC, I did it from Navgati, PCC, I did it from Kocharya. Two amazing places in India, in Bangalore. If you want to do it from their place, do let me know. I'd be happy to introduce you to their team. At least with Kocharya, it's known that I get $100 as a renewal gift from Kocharya if in case you go, you're referred by me. So again, transparency is being shared. So it's also one of the ethical spaces that get tested in the ICE. So as much as possible, core values need to be remembered in terms of also what are the ICF core competencies, interpretive statements that the ICF has already put it in their website. Yeah, so when I wrote the ACC exam, ACC ICE or ICE for ACC, I was trained for 64 hours. Then when I wrote PCC, I was trained for 125 hours. In the evolution, is there an evolution in the exam between 6 months since there's a new format from 2021? 2021 had, I think, 255 plus questions, if I remember right. It was called the CKA. Now it's no longer called the CKA, but it's called the ICE, which means ICF Credential Exam. So that's why it's called the ICE. But it makes people really bounce up really hard because they're very tensed about the whole space. And to a certain extent, somewhere it's tensed because their friends are not cracking it. Coaches they have seen are not cracking it. But doesn't mean you will not crack it. So unless you go to sit in that exam, even though all across our schooling, even though we had the same exam paper, question paper, the answers we wrote were different, and that's why we got different marks, and everybody had either passed or failed. But if you're going to an exam saying, will I pass? That's a wrong notion to get there. You go to the exam saying you will pass this because you've done 60 hours of training, 100 hours of coach practice, 10 hours of mentoring. In say 170 hours that you associate coaching with, I'm sure you've learned something. You've applied something. And a lot of these questions are application based in the new format. So, and then there are 81 questions, 40 and 41, part A and part B. I still get confused as to which one is 40 and which one is 41, but one part is 40, the other part is 41. There are 4 options for each question. And then we have to choose the best option and the worst option in the same question. So each question has 4 options. And among the 4 options, you have to choose the best option and the worst option. So there will be 2 places where you have to drag and drop. So you have a question, there are 4 options. There's a drag and drop space. I think on the left side, there's a drag and drop space. So you go click on the mouse, click on one of the option, put it to the best option, click another option, put it back into the worst option. So that's how the formatting is. And you get, if you're in non-native, non-English speaking countries, where English is not the native language, you get 4 hours to write the exam, not 3 hours. So because I was in India and India is considered as something where English is not a native language, you get 4 hours. So which means part A was 2 hours, part B was 2 hours. So 40 questions, 2 hours is almost like 5 minutes per question. The questions are long. The questions are long, and then it makes you think. And there are 4 options, and then you have to choose. So one of the strategies I used is I took 5 days to prepare for my ACC, 2 days to prepare for my PCC, because the preparation data is the same. And I remember I was doing it twice. So I was doing it the second time for PCC because I had the same content for ACC. The exam format is same for ACC, PCC, and MCC as of now. They've done an trial experiment to keep ACC different, but they've not yet finalized on it, is my latest understanding. So right now, everybody writes ICE. Swapnil, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, so Sunil, regarding the native language, as you said, right? Since India's native language is not English, the duration of the exam is 4 hours, whereas for English-speaking countries, it's 3 hours. So when you say native language, the exam also appears in native
No,
language?
exam is in English. Exam is fully in English.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think it is in English because I'm not sure if it would be Chinese or would be in Mandarin if it is in China, or some other language if it is like that. But generally, it is in English.
Okay. And because on ICF, I saw something like requirement of a translator and stuff like that. So
no, I think that
how
is for
does
possibly other. That is for the audio. It's not for your IC.
Okay.
Yeah, and answering Vanya's question. So basically, the exam format is the same for ACC, APCC, and MCC. And again, questions come from a same pool of around. I am told it's around 1,000 plus questions. It comes from the same pool. So my experience when I wrote it, the ACC and PCC there are two different. There are two different papers. Not all 80 questions are the same. So it's not the same paper that comes to everybody. It comes from a similar set of questions. And so most of the competencies that generally get tested are the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I really look forward to how to identify the best and the worst, because I appeared for the exam once and I couldn't crack it.
Yeah. I'll let you know. I'll be able to
because
share
for
some.
me every answer looks correct.
I know. Because see, a lot of these spaces, there's some places where there are spaces about traps. There are spaces about like advising, giving, etc. So that has to be like that's a general guideline. But somewhere, one of the things that I've learned in terms of possibly a magical tip is stay present with the question. It's almost as if every question is a coaching episode. Yeah, 81 questions. So you're doing 81 small, minute coaching conversations. Look at what the content is sharing, what is left unsaid. And then the most magical of them all is that the answers are in the options itself. 4 options. In the 4 is magically your best option, magically your worst option. They don't want you to analyze the situation, mentor it, or like analyze and then bring it. Stay present with each question. There are only 4 options. The formatting is even say if there are 4 options, two would be in a category that says it's not bad. 2 would be in a category that's not good, right? It's not the best, not the worst. 2 would be in each category. So there's a 50% chance that you're able to, make the answer right. Then sit with those 2 and saying what is the competency that's being discussed? How strong is it a violation? Is it an ethical violation? Is it a competency-based violation? Is it, say, a skill set-based violation? Or is it even a core coaching violation? Right. So that's how you are able to see it. Then at some questions, you will know for sure this is like best option and worst option are immediately known. The other aspect is there is a 3:1 ratio. So 3 is good, 1 is bad. So 1 is already in. So the bad one is very clear for you based on whatever option are there. So that means 1 is a clear shot, the other 3 are to be cracked. And you need to have 460 out of 600 that you'll need to work with. So that means almost like a 75% answer ratio. And it's not a direct number, right? It's not like you answer one question, you get 1 point. And I don't know what's the internal space as to how they do it. So there are so many questions that you're able to immediately know that this is a no-brainer. This is the worst option. This is the best option. There are some questions where you have to sit down and reflect. So there are like questions where the client says, the coach says, no, you should not think like that. Like I'm giving an example. I cannot share what exactly there is. It says, if the coach says, don't think like that, think like this. It's automatically a violation that puts it into worst answer category. Then see other options. There could be even more horribler options. So, you look at it. At that point, you're able to assess. But what helps you here is that you are not processing the question to find, say, Rose's answer, Sunil's answer, Vanya's answer, Seema's answer, but to look at those options and weigh it out, saying, hey, which one would be worst? Well, again, depends on your practice. It depends on your comfort level with each of those ethics and competencies. If you've been a practicing coach consistently, some of it is going to be very easy because you know it internally. You've internalized that mindset. And when the question comes, it's a very clear space. No, it should not be the way it is. Transparency usually gets checked. Relationships in terms of physical intimacy, anything around that, any romance that follows between you and the client, how is that to be handled? How is, say, fathering and mothering space to be handled? There's like a variety of areas that, say, you would have experienced as a coach, and that is actually being put in the in those pool of questions that you get. So it's not that these are uncharted or alien questions or alien scenarios. As a coach, you would have encountered that in your space. And some of them tell me that, hey, a lot of them were corporate. I didn't know how it works in a corporate. So I got a little lost about it. So don't go with the notion saying, I don't know about the corporate. Look at each question as a coaching conversation itself. Right. So when you're coaching as a non-judgmental, you are not doing, you're not trying to build what is the question all about. You're not trying to understand for your sake. You're there. Your next question is coming based on whatever is the client sharing. So your answer is as much coming from these options rather than your own answers to them. And it's worst among the two and best among the two. Worst among the three and best among the three. So there are only two choices. You almost done it like a mathematical space. So when you're thinking of mathematics, the logical brain is taken over. So your fears are reduced. So, when your fear is reduced, you're a lot more present. And, prepare with the ICF, what is that? The core competencies, there is the 8 competencies. Then there are 28 ethical standards, 28 or 27 ethical standards. So each ethical standard is explained by the ICF in videos that the ICF has released and in interpretive statements that are also as part of the ICF website. So these two are very important resources. Then study what is ICF core value. And then one of the things that I did was in the 3 days or the 5 days I initially prepared and the 2 days that I did, that I ran these, say, ICF videos that are based on YouTube to almost like a podcast that was running 24/7. They're like series of, I think, 10, 15 lectures, each 5 minutes each, 5 maximum 6 minutes each. It was continuously on. Sometimes I used to be eating, it was on, but I was not concentrating there. Prior to sleep, I ran something. I was feeling bored. I simply ran it. I was not concentrating on it, but I was listening. My body was listening to it. and I went into the exam fully confident that I'll be able to crack it. So visualization, then preparation, then not being fearful of the exam, because everybody writes a different, writes the same exam differently. And then possibly what I had as advantages was that I personally have a problem. I have no problem with MCQs. So, and then I finished my engineering 8 years back, 8 or 10 years back. In engineering, I wrote in 4 years, I think 64 exams, right? So, I've no problems with exams. Exams don't scare me. And when I write MCQs, even all of my entrance exams, multiple choice questions, I used to be the only one who's giving feedback about all the center, whether it is good, was there an electricity, was the invigilator right? Because everybody was writing, they're still marking the answers. And I used to be like, I finished all of it, can I go now? Right? So I had that as my experience when I was doing MCQs. I was never out of the examination format. So biggest challenge for elderly coaches, elderly in terms of age, so possibly they're 50, 60, sitting for 4 hours is going to be a problem, because you're looking at 81 questions. Each question, like the screen, if you have a big screen, you'll have to read the question, you have to read once or twice. By about part B, your eyes are tired. And then it's almost like there's an eye fatigue that's coming in. So look at that, take blinks, pause, even practice sitting for 2 hours straight, 2 hours straight, 2 hours straight. So that will give you some more, easy spaces of, beginning to look at it. ICF homepage, YouTube, I think possibly, I will share that as a resources at the end of our session, like possibly in terms of, in the email saying this could be interesting tips for you or interesting places. Yeah, I don't know, Nizreen, if I've given you magical tips. In coaching, there's no magic, and I can't say there's magic in this space. But the mindset matters. You're going into an exam fully confident of who you are as a coach. You're confident of your preparations. You're not bothered about someone else passing the exam, not passing the exam. You are authentic in your preparations. You get there, you finish it. And most of all, don't go hungry to a ICF exam. 4 hours, because you know what hungry can do for people. So, and then also I had gone to a physical space for about both for ACC as well as PCC. And you are unbothered about, is my internet proper? Is there going to be an electricity problem? Is someone going to walk into a room when I'm doing it? Do I need to use the washroom, etc., etc., etc.? So I feel most easy where somebody else is taking care of it. So just to answer Seema and Vanya's question, you can do it online as well as you can do it offline in any Pearson View Center. So any Pearson View Center near you can be places where you can go and take the exam. And then, when you're paying fees for the exam, you actually can choose which place. And, if you want to reschedule or cancel and put it to another place, you can do 48 hours prior to that. The physical one, I chose it because it's hassle-free. And I had a physical center hardly 500 to 800 meters from my house. I went and checked it out, and I found it's easy, it's not going to be too much of a hassle to run. So I just went there, wrote the exam and came off. So otherwise you will have to be like, is my internet going to function properly? Is there going to be power cuts? There'll be a proctor. So you are writing the exam, there'll be a proctor that's observing you. Technically, say if I am writing the exam, or if Rose is writing the exam, I am the proctor. And I will be like, is Rose looking at something like that? So I'll be like, look at the screen. So generally, it's not a great practice for you to look outside. Nobody should come into the room while you are trying to write the exam. So if you're because it's a tension space, and then I've had so many people share bad experiences of the proctors not being how do I say, accommodative, and also you need to show, like, if you're taking it from an computer based without your external webcam, then it's a more difficult one. So essentially what the proctor wants to establish is that there's nothing that you put on your wall, there's nothing behind you, nobody in the room with you that's possibly helping you answer that exam. Like there's no proxying stuff, right? So there's no cheating or there's no possibility of that there. But sometimes it becomes a cumbersome space because you're tensed, you're getting to the exam and you're doing all these logistical work. But you go to the physical place, all you have to do is show your identity card, show that, you know, you're this is my time, I booked my slot. You just just take your picture, check your ID card, and you're like, all the due diligence is done. They send you to the room, they just put on a program, and the program starts and your questions begin. Yeah, 360 degrees, correct. So you'll have to show 360, and if you have a physical computer, I don't know how you'll have to basically flip the computer. That's like a lot of unwelcome stuff, specifically if you're getting to an exam. If it is a non-exam environment and tension, etc., I don't mind showing off my entire house. You know, you can do a tour of my house, but not when I'm tense, not when I'm really gunning for something that's as important. I've spent so many hours training for it, so many money is put in, and this is the final hurdle. And then people have put enough in my head saying ICF, the IC is like dangerous and blah, blah, blah. And you get there and you're fumbling saying, oh, where's my webcam? It's not a good start. So if look at everything that you're doing with the IC as a coaching conversation. If you are hassled at the beginning of a coaching conversation, that conversation is gone. If you're trying to interpret it the way you are seeing the questions, again, non-ICF stuff. So stay with the question. And again, stay with the present. There are 81 questions. Once you've marked question 1, question 2. So question 1 is forgotten. Whatever the client has said in this session is what is now important. The client is now sharing something. Stay with what the client is sharing, not about what the client said 5 minutes back. Stay with the present. Stay with the present. Don't get overwhelmed with the question. If you don't know the question, you can mark it, saying you can flag it. Go to the next question. When I wrote my ACC, I flagged the first 6 questions because everything went as a bouncer. Question number 7, I was able to crack. And then I went back 5 minutes later. 7, 8, 9, 10 were easy. I went back to the first 6, was able to crack it, got back to 11 and went ahead. So if you find one question like really challenging, you have enough time, flag it, move, flag it, move. And don't take assumptions saying this is how it is. And don't get into too much of tension. Should I remember the competencies verbatim? They are not going to ask you to name the competencies. You don't have to know the competencies by heart. But if you are getting to an examination with already imbibing the coaching mindset, you're already set. You're set to take the exam. I would be even happy to take the exam right now and say, I'm very sure, I'm very confident I'll be able to get 460 plus. Because the competencies are the same, even if you take it as an MCC, PCC, and or an ACC. What ICF says is the same, right? So it's not going to differ from people to people. So exam to exam. So the same competencies, same set of core values, same set of interpretive statements. The interpretive statements is same for ACC as well as PCC. So your skill set in terms of how you are as a coach usually is already tested with the audio recording. But they're not able to crack more about your mindset. So your mindset as a coach is being checked with the ICE. And so you go there confident. Yeah, so you can actually use the washroom one. Yeah, so there's a 5-minute break in between part A and part B. You can take that. And sometimes if you're doing it in a physical, say, environment, and even say in the online one, you can ask the proctor that you want to take a break. But then I think the entire audio thingy, or like you have to show your nothing shifted for you. and nobody came into the room or nothing happened, you didn't bring any cheat or you didn't bring any cheat code, blah, 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 that has to be, they'll have to recheck. They'll do the rechecking. And at the physical center, they'll check if you brought anything back to the center. So they'll do a physical frisking for me. So that was what they did. Yeah. So you can, I think you can choose an answer, go back, come back. So only when you finally submit is when your answers are frozen. So in part A, so part A, say if you get, say in India, you get say 2 hours. And in say non-English speaking country, so for example, US, you get 1.5 hours each, the 3-hour exam with 5 minutes break. So you get possibly how many? Almost 90-ish minutes for the first one, like 2.5 minutes lesser. So you get that space. So in that, say after your part A is over, you cannot come back to part A. Your part A answers are frozen. But within the time allotted, you can always come back and relook at any answer, relook at any question, and relook at any answer. And I jokingly tell, I don't know whether I passed because I came back to a few questions and I rejigged some of the answers. I don't know if I passed because of that or I got lesser marks because of that. So you will never know. And trust your instincts as a coach. When you look at those options, trust your instincts and mark the one that feels the most right to you. Don't analyze, is it right, is it wrong, because then you're getting into pressure territory. You can get into spaces. So I know so many people who got so overwhelmed that they didn't attempt 30 questions or 25 questions in the exam. And I was like, you could have just gone ahead, because internally they were like, I don't think I'm going to pass. And they gave up middle of the exam. And my advice is stay resilient. Take each question as it is. Move with each question. If you don't know, it is okay. There is no negative marking. You will either get 0, a maximum get half, 45, whatever. Because also, 600 marks for 81 questions and 162 options. Whatever math you do, I don't think you're going to get a standard answer as to why, like, it's not a 1-to-1 mapping. So you take your chances, attempt all 81 questions. And I'm sure you'll be able to, get to a place where you're able to crack it. But if you're going to the IC not getting prepared, you are inviting danger. So I know of a few coaches who said, I know everything around coaching. I will just go 2 days. I will just look at whatever is like a syllabus just 1 day before, and I'll go and write the exam. Gone case. So the passing percentage is 75%. So 600 is the 100% one. And yeah, even if you write all of your answers wrong, I think you will get 180. So yeah, it's just, there's some logic that for every say thing you choose, there's some level of weightage. It's not a zero. It's not a zero-sum game. So 460 is 75%. So 75% of 600 is what is being looked at. And anything above 460 is pass. So you get 461, it's pass. So don't worry why you didn't get 600. You don't have to go to the exam to say, I want to get 90%, I want to get 85%, 99%, 100%. 75 plus 75.1 is pass. And just get there to get 75.1. So for every 4 options, you can get 1 option wrong and still you will pass. So this is the engineer in me that did all of these permutation combinations and said, I can pass the exam. Right? So any questions? I don't know if there are magical numbers that you are expecting. I'm sorry, I can't do magic today. But this is the mental preparation for you to get into an exam. But if you feel that you need additional help in terms of, what resources, how do I prepare, how do I answer each of these questions, I do take one-to-one facilitations or one-to-one consultation or mentoring. I don't know how exactly to call it, but it's not coaching, to help you crack the exam. Help you crack your preparation to the exam, not help you crack the exam. So I'll at the end of 5 days that you work with me, you get to a place where you feel confident that I can actually crack the exam. So I'm working on the confidence phase, and the rest of all is already given by the ICF. Yeah. So one of the example questions, I think, in terms of even I think it's on the ICF example questions space, is that the client, one of your client comes to you and explores saying something about one business proposition that they're working on, and asks you, are you working with a competitor, XYZ competitor? And the options are, you are working with an XYZ. Again, the question also says you're working with the competitor, but not this one that the person has said. So at this point of time, 4 options would be that since it's not explicitly shared by the client, do you say say nothing about the client? So one is ignore and say nothing, because the client has not asked about the exactly one business partner that you're actually working with that is in conflict. You share that you have some possible conflict, but you don't tell their name because they're also your client, and you don't give that up. And then there are options on you ask them something else. I forgot the options, but these 2 are the ones that you give them complete transparency as to you're always transparent about who you're working with, yet maintaining confidentiality if it is about somebody else. So for example, if say Ambika comes and tells me saying, Sunil, are you coaching Rose? Even if I'm coaching Rose, I'm not coaching Rose. My answer is not yes or no. My answer is I cannot tell you whether I'm coaching Rose or not, or I cannot tell you whether I'm coaching anybody else. So data is completely kept confidential. So you'll have to think about it in those nuances. The options would be that. The options would be confusing, right? So possibly look out for words that are easier, like advise, suggest, tell. All of these are like some sampling words for you to say, okay, possibly this is not good category. So 4 options, look at it whether they're good category, bad category. So in that, possibly look at the languaging, and then also see what would you have done. What would you have done? What would you have done? Or what would you feel if the client, you were the client and the coach did that to you? Also use some level of empathy. So all of these are some of these spaces. I don't know if any of you have already a question somewhere. You can just ask, and then maybe I can guide you through the four-step process. And I don't have the ICF website open with me right away. So if somebody can do that in the next 13 minutes, I'd very happily go through a one simple question with you, a 1 mark question with you. Yeah, Swapnil, one of the other things is, even if I'm doing a 1.5 hour space, 90 minutes for part A and 90 minutes for part B. So 40 questions for 1.5 hours is again 2.5 minutes. But there are so many questions out there in the 81 questions that you don't need to spend 2.5 minutes to answer that. So that way you will have some more additional time. And
yeah, somehow I had taken the exam here in Canada, and
or
'cause I'm
3
based
hours.
out of Canada, so it was 3 hours, not 4 hours.
Correct. So
That's number one.
yeah.
And number two is like the questions are worded in such a way that, at least for me, it was I had to, at least read the question twice.
Yeah,
So it becomes very difficult
Mm.
to accommodate that everything in 2 minutes and have spare time to review the question back again or come back to question for review.
Come back to question for review. Yeah.
In section 1, to be very frank, I couldn't solve 2 problems. I did not have time. I couldn't even finish 41. I could finish only 39.
Yeah, I think that can happen. That can happen. But I'm just checking in with all the, say, my experiences sharing. Do you feel like if you were to take it again, you would be better prepared in terms of some of these, say, mental models?
Sorry, I did not get it.
Now, whatever I've shared, is it helping you?
Yeah. I mean, the mindset thing definitely.
Mm.
But I was more looking at, if there is a better way to identify best and worst, because the time at hand, personally, I felt was very less.
Mm.
And since it is a common exam or ACC, PCC, or an MCC,
Mm-hmm.
the questions are, for example, I am at ACC level right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? I cannot have a knowledge and experience of an MCC or a PCC.
Mm-hmm.
So when the question comes for an
Mm-hmm.
ACC, to have that, what do you say, experience of a PCC to answer is not there. So I might take a little bit more time to, understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So since you are at the PCC level, maybe for you it was much easier to comprehend what they're asking and then, quickly respond. But for an ACC level
Yeah.
who has just finished 100 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
that too mainly with, your network of people, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
as you rightly said, it's your playing ground. It's not
Mm.
something that makes you a great coach, because it's like I feel people are there to support you. It's not
Mm.
actually a coaching person. So for that person to
Mm-hmm.
comprehend what has been asked, right, becomes too difficult, and just to understand what they're asking, because the
Mm.
language there is also a little twisted, if
Yeah,
you have
yeah, yeah,
experienced, right?
yeah, yeah. So
In one
language is
sentence they
not
will
easy.
say A, but in second sentence it will be A minus B or something like that. And to totally understand that and then go to best and worst is challenging
Yeah,
thing. And that to
yeah,
do
yeah.
it in 2 minutes, because for us it's 3 hours of test.
Mm.
Do it in 2 minutes becomes a challenge. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think possibly we can also chat again, once again, and then, you know, can, if possibly from that conversation something comes that possibly can help you in terms of looking at some of these questions and stuff, I'd be happy to help.
great, Sunil.
Yeah. So one is just put, oh, possibly, I think I just realized it could be Vanja, it could be an Indian person. And I was like, whenever I see J, my automatic head goes, J could be Russia, sorry, German, and it goes Vanya. So apologies if I've shared your wrong, you pronounced your name differently. And I think it's also possibly something I can do observations also. So, yeah. Yes. So even assumptions, right? So even assumptions are something that they'll test in the IC. So don't assume in your answering, or when you're answering, don't assume about whatever is there in the question also. Like whatever is there in the questions, your data, don't assume stuff, don't build on the numbers. So client is working with the coach. So I'm just reading whatever one has shared. Client is working with the coach to support them during an important career transition. The client currently holds a demanding role of CEO of a company while also raising two young children. And serving as the primary caregiver for their aging parents who live with the client. The client recently reviewed job offers from 3 different companies, each requiring the client and their family to relocate. The client comes to the session excited about the new job opportunities and hopes to gain uh, clarity through the session on which offer to choose. Right, so that's all there is. So I think possibly also, so there's again, if you're able to differentiate between story and whatever are the feelings that are being shared. So even when you have a client that's very verbose and very expressive, as a coach, you're also reading some of those important words only. So when you're reading the question, if you're able to mark the important words, whatever, or words that look important and feel important for you, then it'll also possibly help you in terms of the timeline space. I think that's something that I've seen. So here, see, client is working with a coach. That's okay. You can do it. What is important career transition? Not a role of the CEO role is not important for me. So when they're saying two young children serving as a primary caregiver, there are other things that data is there that's relevant or not relevant. We don't know. But then that's something to look at. 3 job offers, family relocation. the client is excited about the new opportunities and seeks to gain clarity. So the excitement part is also to be looked at. So these are all data for you. So repeat the question to the client to give them another opportunity to respond to the coach's inquiry. Wait, I think I missed something. So, and what does the coach do? Yeah, so potential for travel. When the coach asks what the client's children and aging parents may need in a new community, the client's excited smile disappears and they're suddenly quiet. So first of all, if you're a good coach, you'll be like, that's a bad question. Who asked this question? It's a very judgmental question. So it could also be interpreted like that, but keep your judgment and your space off. This question is given, you can't change the question. So what's happened here, all this excitement that was there is suddenly switched off. So you're able to see a transition in the emotion on the other side. The question has put them in a reflective space, a quiet space. When the client is reflecting, so when you read the first option, repeat the question to give them another opportunity to respond, is almost saying you didn't respond for the, is almost checking in whether they heard you or not. So it's not allowing them to reflect. So my first level of thought, this is not the good option. And this is not the best option. Second, ask the client if they're okay to proceed with the session or if they need a break. Not sure whether it's a good option or a bad option. So we'll have to wait for it. Pause for a moment, then share with the client that they noticed a change in the client's energy and ask if the client would like to explore what they're feeling in this moment. Client autonomy, observational change, permission, pausing. All right ingredients. So you may not know whether this is the best option, but this is definitely in good category. Support the client in weighing the offers they have received by inviting the client each of that characteristics that they've listed for a new job. Right? So this is almost in a way ignoring the emotional transition there is, ignoring the quietness there is, and almost getting into solutioning mode. So this may not be the best answer. Right? So among the four, the third option clicks the best option category. And what clicks so the rest of the three are there for you to choose the worst option. So weighing the offers personally doesn't look the worst option. Asking the client if they're okay to proceed now doesn't look like the worst option. So the first part A becomes a space where you're looking at it from that lens, saying now, if I am reflecting, you ask me a question, what are you thinking about it? 2 minutes later, if you ask me the same question, as a peer coach, I'll be like, why can't you be quiet? Right? So it's almost like you're not allowing the client to think. You're also pushing the client to come to an answer. You're giving a client an impression saying you're not thinking fast enough. You're not thinking good enough. So you're triggering anything else because of that repeating question. So that becomes the worst option right there. Did you see my approach in the way this came up? So it's a tricky word that they use for they. So I think in terms of language and say people inclusivity, the client is usually referred as they. And sometimes it becomes like a English nightmare to find out whether, they're talking about you as the coach, they're talking about the client, or they're talking about both of you. So it becomes an English nightmare. I felt that. Possibly, I think one of the reasons why it made it easier for me is because of my frequency with English is good, and I am a professional writer. So my English is like fantastic. So I was able to read there, and also, can you drop off elements about the story being said? The CEO is not important. What role I'm holding is not important. What's important is about like as and when you're reading, it becomes about the shift in emotion, right? It becomes about the shift in emotion. Am I not reading the shift in emotion? So one of the competencies that there is that the client observes the shift in energy. Sorry, the coach observes the shift in energies of the client and brings it up to the notice of the client without attachment. So that is what is being done here. Oh, and I think, yeah, possibly one of the things that I also do with the coaches that I support in their preparation journey is that actually sit for 1.5 hours with each of the competencies and say, what all are you interpreting out of it? And also, one of the other things that I have followed as a practice ever since I was a kid, looking for the exams, is what would I ask as a question if I was the teacher putting the question paper? So when I see a competency, when I see a possibility from my experience, I'd be like, oh, if this was a question in an ICF exam, what would I ask and what would be the options would I have? But that's maybe, getting a little too much into this, but that was also something that I did. And somewhere be off pressure, like off pressure, be confident in your abilities as a coach because you've put in bare minimum 170 hours of coach, 170 hours of space. And yeah, or about more than 700 hours of space. So you know your stuff, right? So I'm puzzled. Work is a nightmare. I know. And work is a very, very crazy nightmare. But I think it's a space for a lot of us. It's a reality, right? So, and again, biases. How do we handle biases? Again, coach supervision, mentor. So all of these as to what is the interpretive statements of these competencies and say ethical spaces is given in the ICF website. So reading that and getting to it, it'll almost give you like a general plethora of the ideas saying, hey, what could be answers the ICF is expecting with this question? What's worst, ignoring versus leading the client? Ignoring is usually worst. So you're not staying in the present, you're ignoring. Again, leading the client could be interpretive, right? So somewhere when in the woke English space, English interpretation space, and I found that sometimes the question itself is like so horrible, saying the client is doing such a the coach is doing such a blunder with that question. But then you can't, you can't say that's a blunder. You have to move on. And four options that they are, all four options start with suggest. So your traps is out of the window, saying, oh, if it is suggest, then it is possibly a worst option. All four are suggest. Then what do you do? Right? I've had such such things come in the exam. So stay with the questions, stay with the options, look at those options and almost like see it very methodically, doing one step after the other. Because as a practicing coach, you've lived these competencies. It's nothing new. So that's the mental makeup you need to get to. Right. So yeah, and yeah, if any of you nearing your examination wants a sneak peek into this again, you can come back to this recording. I do also help some people get the up close and personal space with the competencies. So I sit down with them for an hour and a half, discuss each of those competencies. What are the nuances of each of these words? How can they be interpreted by you? Possibly also how it can be showing up in a particular session for you. And then what would you do as an ideal coach at that point of time? So, and I charge for it because I put 1.5 hours into 5. I put around 8-10 hours of my effort and my energy into it. I charge around 5,000 to around 100 euros for the entire package. And yeah, so since I'm putting effort and I'm putting my experience on the line, so I charge for it. But if you're just pinging me saying, hey, I want answer to this one, that's on the house. So, and then my philosophy is you give, and when you give, the universe will give you back. So that's my philosophy for this one. And any questions? Because I think we overshot by 3 minutes. Any questions? Any feedback? If you're giving me compliments, you know how amazingly well I receive compliments. Rose knows it. So it's her, I think, second session. Ambika also knows it well. So I'm unafraid to ask for compliments. So yeah. So at any point of time, if you need help, yeah, resources, Nizreen, I'll be sharing with attachment or, like for this email and possibly after tomorrow, because I think there's a lot of things on my plate right now. So by Monday, I think you should receive an email with all the data.
Sunil, I have a question.
Yeah.
May I ask?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah. So in case if ACC certificate get expired, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you have not, someone has not applied for the PCC as yet.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
then, when the person can apply, or once it is expired, means it's expired, so person has to redo everything.
No, I think usually ICF, from what I understand, gives a 2-month grace period if you're doing a renewal. So ACC renewal, PCC
Okay.
renewal, I think it gives a 2 months renewal, grace period, and there are no additional charges to that. But I think after that there's something that comes along. Your your training hours will still be valid. Your CCUs will still be valid. So if you have the valid CCUs, you can still apply. But I think I don't have the complete information about it. So maybe I will have to get back. But write to support at icf.org. They will usually respond in a day or two, and you're getting it from the right source. So it makes it easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. No worries. Yeah, and I think also, my thought process is to share all the recordings from all my sessions to everybody who has registered for any of the even one session. If you have registered, you will get resource from all of them. So that way, it's one of my gifts, and possibly, it also opens up the space of giving, and the universe will give me in hundreds while I give in once. So thank you
Sunil,
for
will you?
jumping.
Sorry, Seema here once again. Will you be uploading all your these videos on the
Yes,
YouTube
yes,
of the
yes.
tribes group?
Yes. YouTube will say all of them will be played on the tribe. And I think
Okay.
also some of these are private links or unlisted links. So only people with access to those links will get it. So that is why I want to share it as the link in the email, so that people have the link and they actually are able to see it. So there are some that I'm going to be uploading with direct access to the channel. Because like if there's somebody that has shared something and it's a confidential space, I don't want to share it with all of YouTube. So that's the idea.
Sunil, I tried to open the link. It's not opening. It requires some permission from you.
I think then it's an unlisted one. So where did you open it from? Was it from the group? I'll have to
Yeah,
do some.
it's in the chat box. It's
Yeah.
by you.
Sorry,
Sorry.
It is in the chat box.
in the Tribe of Coaches WhatsApp or?
No, this one, this meeting wala jo chat box hai.
Okay. So yeah, I think I shared the wrong ones. The latest one I think I've shared should be the one. Or is it
So
gone
is
to
there any
studio?
name of your YouTube channel we can go and follow and subscribe and all?
Yeah, it's called NimmaCoach-Sunil Satyendra.
Okay, that's
Yeah, and I think I should have this link. I think this should work. Just give me a minute. Yeah, thank you, Rose. I see you. Yeah, I think the latest one should work. Just check it out. Yeah.
I missed, I think, a couple of sessions
Yeah.
yesterday before
So
yesterday.
all of that will be shared. All of that will be shared, and also answering Rose. All of that will be able to. I'll be able to share. And yeah, and I know ICW is like a fantastic session. Like if I had not put some of these sessions myself to be actually the host, I would have skipped a lot of these, like a lot of these sessions and gone to other chapters, other places, and like met a lot of people. So I if ICF ever listens to this, and I'd say make an ICW every quarter. So it should not be once a year. It should be once in every 3 months. Because like blown away by the quality of content, the learning, the people. It's been a fantastic experience. And I hope tomorrow you also join into the art of personal branding for coaches. And that way you would have completed the journey with me, and then also join the tribe of coaches, and our WhatsApp community. And I think we are also on LinkedIn if that makes it easier for you. I will also share the LinkedIn also as part of the email and resources. So that way you can also jump into that.
Sunil, I tried to enroll myself for this tomorrow's session. I told you earlier also I was not able
It is,
to.
yeah, it's, I think there's some problem. So go for the ICS file that I've shared with you. The ICS file allows you to directly register on the Zoom.